Okay, so another thing that we can do besides spinning the yarn, the wool into yarn to make use of it, is something called needle felting, which I started describing how the needles work. They've got a little notch on them that grabs the fiber and pushes it down into the rest of the fiber. They're very, very fine, and they're bloodthirsty. They will draw blood. You got to be careful and respect the needles. So some of the things you can do, you can find at the different craft stores, pre-made colors that you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pause?
Mm-hmm. You're okay. I don't think it picks it up anyway.
Okay.
You can keep going.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't tell her that I was doing this. Okay, so you can get pre-made shapes. These are little balls, and they also had other shapes that are available. And that makes it easy to go ahead and save time, because making little hard balls is kind of difficult. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you can do is you have a base. It's basically a piece of brush that when you're working with this, it disappears into the brush, but it doesn't damage the needles. And what I like to do is I like to use cookie cutters. And the cookie cutter allows you to create a shape that is easy to start, because you lay the cookie cutter down and you put your fiber into the cookie cutter. Whoops, I need a tall one. Yeah. Here we go. So this one is a little more dangerous because the needles are all out. And
You're good. You're okay.
okay, so by putting the wool in and pressing it down, I have a pre-made shape that I'm working with. And I almost got myself. So you do have to be very careful with what you're doing. Then you add a little bit more. Whoops, this one got some red in it. It happens. So once you get your basic shape made, then you can go ahead and embellish it with other pieces, pull this away, and then you refine the edges by poking in from the sides to firm them up. Right now this one's kind of halfway done, but you would just peel it off like that and work with it. As you can see here, I was making a Valentine's heart, and it's about halfway done. Once I get the hearts in and I get some little green in there for leaves, then I take beads and I apply beads here and there and put a hook on it and make a necklace out of it. With this, I made these I put little beads for the eyes, and I put a hook on it and used it as a keychain. So they're very, very sturdy. They stay together very, very well by the time you're done. A lot of fun, and it's quick and easy and relatively inexpensive to make a unique gift for a family member. You can buy little kits like this that have a couple of needles. They have a foam instead of the brush. The brush can be expensive. But this right here, basic instructions, you can get started for just a few dollars. You could even, if you don't have the dog hair, you could use the dog hair for needle felting. You can use pillow fluff. I've got right here. Some pillow fluff is better than others. This acts sort of like cotton. The stuff that's the real springy stuff that's real short, don't mess with that. But this can definitely be needle felted or spun. It's polyester, and you can dye it with a dye you can get from the craft stores called I Dye Poly. So even if you're allergic to wool, you can still play with fibers. All right. Well, can you think of anything else I haven't touched or that we can talk about tonight?
How did you do on the heart?
Mm-hmm.
Are those little rosebuds on there?
Yep. Basically, the rosebuds are just blends of this right here.
Mm-hmm.
Take a little bit of it, the colors, and start. Okay, let's use this. Just put a rose on top of this. You kind of fold it over a little bit and start the middle of the rose.
Mm-hmm.
And then twist it a little bit.
Okay.
then twist some more, and then just circle it around. And as you build it, by golly, it starts to look like a rose, just like that. And then it helps to hold the rose in place. It's usually pretty well poked in, but putting a bead in the middle of it and stitching through generally helps secure it. And besides the fiber, you can also use some of the pretty sparkly embroidery flosses. You can poke those in also.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's lots of different things you can grab. And you can even go ahead and use pipe cleaners and make a little figure. One of my favorite artists that does little people says she puts the face on last because when she's poking certain parts of the body, she doesn't want them to see her do it. Okay. Oh, and here's another project I did. I got from where I worked, I have a blue cap, and I used one of these molds that you can buy for snowflakes, and I added little snowflakes to my cap. Once more, you can take something that everybody else has got, and you can personalize it. Okay. This is, oh, I almost forgot. When we were talking about fibers, one thing we did not talk about was recycled fibers. This is recycled blue jeans.
Oh, wow.
And it by itself, it's not the best to make a strong thread, but if you take it like this and blend it with something else, it's great for texture and colors and just adding a little bit of, once more, unique texture. All right. This has been so much fun. Okay. Can you think of any questions you've got? Anything I can answer?
What do you do with this? Like, what would you
Come on
make?
up. Oh, this right here?
Yeah, what would you make with it?
Well,
How would you
this
use it?
is,
Like, oh, you'd actually make the thread out of it.
exactly.
Oh, okay. So it's already like wider, so then you can just use it. And, okay.
Yeah, what happens with this is a way that we buy our wool. This is called roving, that it's been cleaned, washed from like the stuff we had before, and it's been brushed and by a machine that spits it out in this long, long strip. It's got no twist in it. It's just the fiber itself. And you can see they intentionally have two colors here to make it kind of a tweedy thread once it's done up. So in order to spin that, we just break off a piece that's reasonable to handle. And once more, we start off with the point on here. Just almost dropped it. It's called a drop spindle. In the first year or so I was learning how to use it. I started out, I was doing it over the bed so that I didn't have to pick it up as far.
Okay.
And then just do the little butterfly. Try not to have it wobbling all over the place, but sometimes it does.
So are all those made out of wood, or do they also have them? Is that like a fancy one that you got custom made?
This
for your
one,
drop spinner?
this one is moderately fancy. We've actually got a wood turner here in Utah. She's in Orem, and she makes really, really fancy ones. I love her stuff. This one, I got this one like in the late 80s, and this is kind of like, it was fancy for them. Things have gotten so much, like this right here, this is an average yarn that I usually spin. And back then this would have been way, way, way too fine. Everybody was doing big, fat, funky yarns. And we didn't have all of these lovely fibers available to us. It was a lot more limited. You were basically stuck with buying the fleece and processing the fleece yourself. It's a lot easier to do now. But as a matter of fact, this is one of those fancier ones. I got it because it's a similar shape, but she uses different woods. This is ebony. She's gonna kill me because I can't remember the wood there, but it's just beautiful to spin with.
It's gorgeous.
And this is one of the things that we love is the tools. It's just, it makes it so much more fun to have a beautiful piece of something to play with. Okay, well, one thing I can think of that we've not done is that we haven't actually shown a spinning wheel. Would you like to see a spinning wheel and how it works? Awesome. Now this looks old-fashioned to most people. It looks like a spinning wheel is supposed to. There are a lot of different kinds of wheels, and this one is based on more traditional shapes, but it's a very modern wheel. It was actually invented in the late 30s, early 40s, a company out of New Zealand. And this was actually used during the war effort to help people come up with yarns for socks and things like that. And the whole idea with the spinning wheel is that you're going to have the up and down foot action with this crank turning the big wheel, and the big wheel turns a small wheel. We've got different whirls, just like the gear of a car, and each of those determines how fast it goes. For instance, on one of the smaller ones, it runs real fast. If I put it on one of the bigger ones, it doesn't run nearly as fast for the same number of revolutions of the big wheel. So, the next thing we are going to do, just, where's some light stuff? I got it. Okay, so here's some light wool. You'll be able to see it pretty well. And we have a leader string that's on the bobbin. The bobbin is a separate piece from the flyer. This and the hole in the middle of it. So you can see here, there's a hole right here, and that hole, the thread goes through the middle of it, and it comes out right here, and that's how the twist goes from here onto the yarn. This is always a fiddly bit when you're getting started.
So you just tie a knot?
Yep, I just have a piece of string and oops, it's not fell off. So by doing the knot on the end of it, I can just pull it apart there,
Oh, okay.
stick a little bit of this in there, and it's ready to go. So as I curl, okay, are we, yeah, that's right. It didn't realize it was so loud. This is not my favorite preparation to spin. Okay, that's definitely not my favorite preparation. I usually like to spin it over my finger. Gives me more control, as you can see. What I'm doing with my right hand is stopping the twist temporarily so that I can control. See, if I stop it and I keep going, I can actually pull the wool thinner. And then when I let the twist go up, that locks that twist in, and I keep going to make additional wool. And then after a little bit, I stop and move over to the, usually when I'm starting, I do 2 hooks over,
Okay.
and we go back and forth until we filled up our bobbin. And then you take it off of the bobbin, and you match the threads up so that you can, okay, it's not gonna, you pair up the threads or put more than 2 threads together, and then wind them back the other direction to finish plying it and make your finished yarn that you're going to use. I make this look easy. It's not. There was a lot of cases where it would break and it'd be whoop right through the middle of the world, and I would just kind of get frustrated. In the beginning, I wasn't very good at doing like right now, what do you do when it breaks? Well, in the beginning I had a lot of knots because I couldn't get it to join back. But if you take, it likes itself, and you can see it's joined up. And you can see, like I said, you can spend a lot in an hour, and you don't have to work real hard at it. You're just kind of tapping your foot, that's all. And I'm not trying to make this perfect yarn, I'm just kind of playing right now. See that? Got way too thin. What do?
Blend it with the other.
Yeah, you fluff it a little bit. Tell it to stop unwinding itself. Fluff it a little bit, split it a little bit. Grab another bunch. And start up again. It's time to switch. I got a lot of twists there I need to get rid of, so do this, give it a little tug, and the twist travels up the thread when you tug on it a little bit. And you see it start winding off there. And I've sometimes had to switch colors because folks said, you're just pulling it off again. It's like, no, I'm making fresh. And they have to watch it disappear from my hand for them to get it. And this one, when I'm doing the really fast treadling like that, it does chatter some, so it talks. But it's very, very relaxing. It's almost meditative once you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, and the white noise of the wheel too. It's nice.
When I first was learning how, it was a similar wheel. I loved it so much I got my own. And I took it everywhere with me. I went to visit friends, I had the wheel and I was spinning. And I was talking and chattering away and it got quiet and I looked up and everybody in the room was just staring at the wheel.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, a little bit of, normally what I would do there is I would just pull out the extra fiber. And that, by the way, that's where the term fingering yarn came from. It would usually have, it was a finer yarn, and so it would have little neps in it sometimes. And you just kind of roll those a little bit to make them lay down.
Did you have time, Donna, to show the other piece that you had there, the other work? The camera with like a dowel with the 2 pieces of wood.
Oh, here we go. All right, yep, that's another thing when you're talking about spinning and you can have expensive pieces and you know, maybe you don't have a lot of money. Well, at one point in time, I wanted a spindle, and this is a chopstick, and a wooden bead, and hot glue, and I had a broken mug tree. You know those things that the mugs hang on? So I cut, this is a square chopstick, so I cut 2 squares, and let me make sure, oops, I did it wrong. This is the one that doesn't fit right. There we go. There's one. And this one, you start off just by letting it sit because otherwise it'll fall off right away. So I'm just going to twist it in my lap. Come on. You can see it popping off of the tip there. And this is, you know, there are a lot of spindles out there that are called supported spindles, and this would be how you would start spinning with a supported spindle. And those have gotten very fancy these days. So I have to get enough of this started so I can tie it on. And you notice I switched hands. When I'm drop spinning, I hold the fiber in this hand. When I'm spinning at the wheel, I hold it with this hand. I don't know why. But so it's kind of on the end. I'm going to bring it down. And then this one doesn't have a hook, so you do a little half hitch, and now you can spin with it. Whoops. Gonna be skinny spot. And instead of rolling it down your leg, you do it this way. This is the way a lot of spindles, this is actually Turkish style, but a lot of the European spindles had the weight at the bottom instead of the top, like what I had. The one that I like the most, there's two places where that was normally done. One of them was in Scandinavia, which is Norway, Sweden, and those countries. The other's in Egypt. And not much in between. So I run out of arm. Pop that off. Come on, there we go. Wind it on. Under 1, over 2. Now this takes a while, but this is often done by shepherds who are watching sheep. And they can do this and not take their eyes off their sheep, and they accomplish something while they're out doing other things. Look it again. Whoops, it went down that time. Okay, so that's a Turkish spindle. And there's some really nice ones available, some guys who do some really fancy stuff. But if you can't afford it, you can make it yourself. So that's one technique. And then also we have, for really short fibers like cotton, this is called a takli. And it's like a brass coin. Usually this was actually a coin that they would drill a hole in. And this is just a rod of usually steel or iron. And it's got a flattened spot at the top with a little hook. And it was mostly used with cotton, but that can make you nuts if you're trying to just show people stuff. So let me try the pillow fluff. So this is just polyester pillow fluff. I'm going to hook a little bit of it there. It's going to be all funky. So once it's long enough, we grab the end again, wind it on down here. Now this can be used to make a more delicate thread because you're not relying on the thread to carry the weight of the spindle. So the finest cottons are spun in this fashion rather than with a drop spindle. And I'm totally messing up compared to how those ladies do it. I'll include some videos for you to show. And there's one of my favorites is this Indian lady, and she's using one of the wheels and spinning cotton. She is so authoritative about doing it. It's like, I'm going to show you how it's done properly. Take notes. And I just love her. And then once you're done, you would unwind it down to here, wind it on, come back up, and spin again. And you can see it's like sewing thread, which I'd never be able to use one of the drop spindles for. Okay, so we've got ethnic ways that people use to make their fibers, things that you can carry with you so you can accomplish it while you're on the go, ways to make lots and lots of thread when you're able to sit in one place. There's a lot of ways to take fibers and make something with them that is useful, enjoyable, and you've accomplished something rather than just watching TV. And you can do it while you're watching TV. Okay, so thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure helping you today. I hope I get to come back and share more information with you. Do ask questions. I'll be sure to answer all of your questions. I'll be glad to. And I'll be sharing links to more information so that you can follow down that little rabbit hole and have a good time. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Bye-bye now.